Hey, y'all. How's everybody doing out there tonight? Good. Well, it's good to be at the Roadhouse Cafe here in Pittsboro. Uh, I grew up not too far from here in Randolph County. We have anybody here from Randolph County? Hey, y'all. Hey. So I normally tell traditional stories, folk tales, fairy tales, Celtic stories. But tonight I'm going to tell a true story, a personal story. They're all true in some way or another. And as Andy Griffith would say, I've been studying on my personal story, and I realize that it has magic, love, loss, hope, the same things that all those traditional stories have. So I invite you to join me on this journey, and I feel sure along the way that you will have a story of your own come to mind. Now, I'd like to start it with a little part of a song, the beginning of a song by Kate Wolf, who was a popular singer-songwriter. I see some nods. In the 70s. You know this one? Kind friends all gathered round, there's something I would say. What's brought us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside, where strangers are as family, loneliness can't hide. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. It was one of her most popular songs. And love is really what it's all about. As right here we see with Linda and Sam, the love of a boy for his fish, the love of a mama for her baby that sends her back home when she needs to go. Well, how many of you remember your first kiss? I thought so. Well, the first kiss that I'm thinking of is one that I don't remember, because I'm thinking of the kiss my mama gave me when I was born. And I know that my mama kissed me when I was born because she showered me with kisses my whole life, and because my mama loved babies, even surprise babies. You see, my oldest brother, Glenn, was 20 when I was born. My middle brother, Tim, was 14, and my mama was 40. And she was embarrassed and worried to be pregnant at that age, because back then it just wasn't that common. And she'd been told that her age posed an increased risk for the baby. But back then, you really didn't talk about such things. But she knew pretty soon it was going to be out there for all to see. So she thought she'd better talk to Tim, the 14-year-old in the house. So one day she called him into our formal living room, which we never used. But sometimes my mama did her ironing in there. Tim came bounding in. He plopped down on the couch, and just as my mama was ironing a crisp line in a shirt, she began, "Tim, I've got something to tell you. I'm pregnant." And just as she burst into tears, he burst into chuckles. "I knew that, Mama. I already knew that." He was 14 after all. Well, my other brother Glenn was at college, and my mama used to write him letters. And she wrote him one in the month of May, and she said, "I'm so ready to have this baby I could jump out of a tree. And your daddy says I'm crazy enough to do it." My red-headed mama was known for the crazy things she would say and her impetuous nature. Well, she didn't have to jump out of a tree because I was born later that month, and she told me I was the easiest of her 3 children to birth. She said, I only had one what you'd call hard labor pain, and out you popped. And I know my mama showered me with kisses, and each one was a blessing that said, I love you. Welcome home. All is well. Of course, I do remember the first time a boy kissed me. It was in the 1st grade. I was an early starter. Now, I was in Miss Stout's room. Miss Stout was a stern woman. She had been teaching at least 140 years. But still, she had pitch black hair, except for 2 swaths of white on either side, like Morticia. She had dark, stormy eyes, pale skin, and bright red lips, and wherever she was, hung a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Now, if you misbehaved in Miss Stout's room, she would pinch you. She would smack you with a ruler. She'd pull your hair. Sometimes Miss Stout would step out of the room for just a little bit, and most children were too afraid to misbehave. But there was this one cute, impish little boy who would pop out of his seat, dash over to me, peck me on the cheek, and run back to his seat. It was an innocent kiss. But children grow up, and eventually there came a time when I had a not-so-innocent kiss. Like I said, I grew up in Randolph County on a small farm way out in the country, and my school was way out in the country, and we didn't have dances and things like that happen at a lot of schools today. But teenagers will find a way. Do I have any teenagers in the room? No? Teenagers will find a way. So different classmates would hold parties at their houses. I had a full basement. Perfect place for a teenage party. When I had my first party, my mama might have been cleaning. She cleaned all the time. My daddy might have been reading. He read all the time. Or they might have been doing something entirely different. But whatever it was, they were nowhere to be found. We were completely unsupervised. To this party, there came a young man named Lewis, and he was fun and funny. He was a pal of mine, but I didn't have romantic feelings for him. Still, when he asked me to slow dance, I agreed. Now, at that time, I went to a church that had a youth pastor who was dynamic. He was so funny. We all loved him. And he had taught us that there are 3 kinds of kisses. The peach, the prune, and the alfalfa. Well, as that slow song came to an end, Lewis leaned in and alfalfa'd me. I didn't know what to think. I ran upstairs into the bathroom, closed and locked the door, and that's where I stayed until the party was over and Lewis had left. Of course, there did come a time when there was a kiss I wanted. It was at another teenage party, a house at a classmate's house. How about that? Who also had a full basement. Now, to this party, there came a young man named Scotty. He had sandy blonde hair with perfect 80s wings, hazel eyes and muscles beneath his T-shirt, and he was a little bit older than me. We danced every dance together. And at the end of the evening, when somebody called down the steps, "Sherry, your father's here," Scotty walked me to the foot of the steps. Now, there were some other boys leaving at the same time that were behind us, but still, we lingered at the foot of the steps, and just as Scotty leaned forward and pressed his lips to mine, the door opened, and there stood my father. Well, my face turned to fire, my blood turned to ice. I walked up the stairs, head down, fearing the worst. We got in the car, we headed down the road, and as we went, my dad burst out, "What do you think you are? Some kind of soap opera star? All those boys lined up to kiss you?" "No, Daddy, no. I was just kissing the one boy." But that was bad enough. First love's first kiss. That's one you remember. My first love was a young man named Shane. He had white blonde hair, sky blue eyes. He wore a 10-gallon hat and a great big belt buckle. He was a cowboy. His dream was to ride in the rodeo. And he had been flirting with me for a long time. He finally won me over. And when we went out and our lips met for the first time, I lifted right into the air. I went to the moon and back. And when my feet landed squarely on the ground, when that boy broke my heart, there was my mama. She pulled me in as I sobbed in her breast, and she said, "It'll be all right, doll. It'll be all right." And the splinters of my heart began to pull back together, and somehow I knew it would be all right. Sometimes it's the last kiss you remember most. My daddy was only able to go through the 8th grade in school. After that, he had to work and help take care of his siblings. Smart man, and he was a huge proponent of education, and he made sure all 3 of his children went to college. I went to UNC Wilmington, better known as UNC by the Sea. And the summer before my senior year of college, my mom and daddy came to visit me at my little apartment. We went to the beach. My mama stood on the shore, the waves, water lapping at her toes because she was afraid of the waves. But my daddy and I were good swimmers. We liked the waves. So we went way out where they were nice big swells. And we were good floaters. We laid back on the water like we were laying on a mattress, our toes poking out of the water, holding hands as the waves lifted us up and down, up and down. At the end of that weekend, my mama showered me with kisses. My daddy put his great big hands on my shoulders. He was over 6 feet tall. And he looked down at me with his clear blue eyes twinkling. He said, "I love you, doll. I'm proud of you." And he leaned down and pressed a kiss into my cheek. 1 week later, my daddy had a massive stroke and died. But I still have that kiss. It was around that time that I had true love's first kiss. See, I'd been friends with a man named David for a while, and we both felt something more blossoming. He was a great comfort to me when my daddy died. Well, we were at a house with some friends watching a football game, and David and I had slipped into the kitchen for a snack and a drink and a moment alone. And we were laughing and talking, which always came so easily to us. And we were just getting ready to join the others when an electric current pulled us together. And when our lips met, 1,000 butterflies took flight in my heart. 2 years later, and my brother was standing with me, standing in for our father to walk me down the aisle. "You all right?" "Yeah," but I was so nervous. We had written our own vows, and we were going to speak them without looking at the paper, and I was afraid I'd forget the words. And then the door opened to that little chapel at Carolina Beach, and there stood my true love, handsome in his white tux, auburn hair slicked back, bright blue eyes beaming at me, and that crooked smile I love so much. And we remembered our words. When Preacher Massey declared us husband and wife, and we kissed for the first time as Mr. and Mrs. Lovett, joy burbled up from deep inside and came out as a giggle from my lips to his. 8 years later, and I was kissing the soft, sweet cheek of our newborn daughter. Her daddy took her into his arms, his face a deep well of emotion spilling out over his eyes. And my mama was there. My mama took her new granddaughter into her arms, and she showered her with kisses. It's a moment that I will always remember. But there came a time when my mama didn't remember much of anything. She was in the last stages of Alzheimer's. But somehow, she still remembered me. When I'd go see her, she'd say, "Hello, doll," and she'd kiss me. I don't know where we come from or where we go to, but I believe that it's the same great mystery. And when my mama took that journey, I was with her. And I showered her with kisses. And each one said, "I love you. You're going home. All is well." Love is born in fire, it's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you're ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It'll be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to tears and laughter and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Thank you.